Hi everyone, I'm Katie. Welcome back to Making Waves. I appreciate you being with me today. So today we're going to talk about something a little different. We are going to discuss crime on cruise ships. Stay with me, let's talk about it. So I know this may seem like an odd topic for a cruise channel, but something you should know about me is I kind of like those true crime shows. I'm a little bit kind of like, oh, it's Katie on the case. I'm going to figure this out. I like the mystery of it. I also really enjoy data. I'm a bit of a data nerd. And so this topic just was interesting to me. And I found that there's a site that compiles certain crime data that occurs on cruise ships. And so I spent several hours kind of compiling this and slicing and dicing the data. So I thought we could look at it together. So back in 2009, the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act was enacted. And this required cruise ships to report certain types of crime to the FBI. And there's a website, which I will note down in the comments, that releases this data on a quarterly basis. So they have released data that starts from the year 2010 and goes through 2022. So I compiled that and I thought it would be interesting to look at. So the types of crimes that have to be reported according to this act are things like murder, theft, I think theft greater than 10,000, if there is a missing U.S. national, if there's any suspicious deaths, things like assault with bodily injury, and sexual harassment. So let's just take a look at it. Each topic that we talk about, I'll kind of highlight in yellow on the screen so you can see what we're going to be reviewing. And I will pull my computer closer so I can actually see it and put on my eyes. So let's start with the worst of them, which is homicide. So you can see the list of all of the cruise lines here. And there is only one reported homicide between 2010, when this act became law, and 2022. And you can see that that was on Princess Cruises. Now, some of you may recall the specific incident. This was a cruise to Alaska, and I remember hearing about this when it happened. It was a domestic situation. Unfortunately, a man killed his wife on the cruise ship. He was on a cruise with his family, and allegedly the wife had asked for a divorce. Seems like an odd time to ask for that, but something must have precipitated it. And he killed her. I won't go into any more details on that, but if you aren't familiar with this case, I'll be happy to find a news article from that time and link it in the comments. So that is the only homicide in the last 13 years that's been reported on a cruise ship. Of course, that's one too many, but thankfully that it is only one. All right, let's look at the next category. In the next category is suspicious deaths. So here's the thing. I'm not exactly sure what's included in this. I have to assume that certain man overboard situations must be included in this, or if there were deaths that they couldn't really tell how it happened, I'm guessing that's included in this data as well. But let's take a look at it together. All right. So we can see that there were 10 that affected passengers, so 10 suspicious deaths of passengers on Carnival Cruise Lines, and one crew member. If you go on down the line, you can kind of see the others. Gosh, looks like there are 4 on Norwegian, 4 passengers on Norwegian, and one listed as other. I'm not sure who's included in other. I'm going to assume that it's probably vendors, contractors, that type of thing that are included in other. So altogether, for that 13-year period between January of 2010 and the end of 2022, there were a total number of 28 suspicious deaths. I couldn't really find a lot of news information about this, so I'll just share the numbers as they are right now. And if you can recall any specific stories other than kind of the man or woman overboard stories that we've all tragically heard about over the last few years, definitely share those with us. Would love to know more information. All right, let's move on to the next category, which is missing U.S. nationals. So these are folks that have gone missing. I don't know if this also possibly includes folks that have gone overboard. I'm not so sure about the difference between the suspicious deaths and missing. I guess if it's a suspicious death, they've recovered the body, and if they're missing, obviously they haven't. So let's take a deeper dive into the missing. All right, looks like we've had a total of 13 Carnival passengers that have gone missing. And the next highest looks to be Royal Caribbean with 5 passengers, a couple on Norwegian, and then some, kind of scattered throughout the other cruise lines. So 23 in total there. All right, let's move on to kidnappings. I was like, oh gosh, do people really get kidnapped off of cruises? This was kind of a fascinating one to me. I don't recall ever hearing about a kidnapping on a cruise ship. Again, if you have, would love to know more details about that. Definitely hit us up in the comments below. All right, so for kidnappings, again, thankfully, the number is really very low. It's only 2, and interestingly enough, they were both on Royal Caribbean. Looks like 1 passenger and 1 other. So again, vendor, contractor, I'm guessing. And so again, I don't have any details on that, but just thought that was interesting. All right, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is assault with serious bodily injury. Now, we've heard, I feel like, more in the last couple of years about fights breaking out on cruise ships. I'm not sure why that is, but I'm going to guess that that's a lot of the assault with serious injury stem from that type of activity. So let's take a look at it together. All right. Well, once again, we have Carnival leading the way with 40 passengers and 1 crew member. It looks like the next largest number of assaults with serious bodily injury occurred on Norwegian cruise lines with 12 passengers. So you can kind of see the data there. Very interesting. It's just interesting information to me. Hopefully I'm not the only one that finds it interesting. Let's move on to the next category, and that is firing or tampering with a vessel. So just to be sure I understood what that meant, I did look it up. So firing, as you might suspect, means setting a fire on a vessel or otherwise tampering with it that could, to the point of it potentially causing safety issues and potential harm to passengers. So let's take a look at that. Again, not many cases of this, thankfully, here, but it looks like we have 2 in the other category with Carnival, 1 passenger on Holland America, and that looks to be it. So thankfully, not too many cases of that. By the way, I'm sharing this information. I know not everyone will be interested in it, but I just think people have a right to know, and we'll kind of talk about the numbers here at the end when we get through all the categories and what my thoughts are on it. So if this information is helpful, I hope you'll consider giving this video a like. It definitely helps us out, helps our channel and this video be seen by more folks. And please know if you do hit the like button, we do really appreciate it. All right, let's move on to the next to the last category, and that is theft of greater than $10,000. I'm going to put the numbers up here on the screen, and let's go through it. So there are several here, which is interesting. So it looks like leading the way, we have Royal Caribbean with 19 total cases, 4 passenger, 10 crew, and 5 in that other category. And then Carnival looks like the next highest with 2 passenger, 2 crew, and 4 other, with some others scattered in there. Third place looks like it's Princess with 3 passenger and 4 other. So again, interesting information. again, I'm not a criminal, so I don't know how that works and how you would steal money from a cruise ship. So I guess I'm not such a true crime sleuth after all. I'm just not even sure how that would happen. It seems like there's a lot of security measures in place, and in places that would have cash, places like the casino and possibly guest relations. So anyway, that's interesting to me. All right, let's move on to the last category, which is definitely the largest in terms of number of offenses, and that is sexual assault. I'm going to put the numbers up on the screen and let's go through them. All right, so we have for sure Carnival leading the way with 209 cases of sexual assault in the last 13 years. It looks like 177 passengers, 27 crew, and 5 other. And then in second place, in terms of the next highest, that looks like that would be a Royal Caribbean with 119, with sexual assault affecting 87 passengers, 29 crew, and 3 other. What I thought was interesting was Disney. Disney had 17, so 6 passengers, 10 crew. That seems like a lot of crew for the number of ships they have, and 1 other. All right, so if we total all those offenses up from all the categories, I'm going to throw the numbers up. Here's what they look like from 2010 through 2022. So we have Carnival with the most, and that is at 284. We have Royal Caribbean following them with 154, and then it looks like Norwegian following them at 89. So what does this all mean? Does this mean that cruise ships aren't safe and that, I should be scaring you off of cruises by sharing this information? Well, I don't think so in the least. So I did a little bit of research, not comparing apples to apples, but I, for example, did some research on what is the rate of violent crimes in the US. Now, obviously, not all of those crimes that I showed on the chart would necessarily be considered violent, but this was at least some indicator that we could look at. So it looks like the average in the US is 379 violent crimes per 100,000 people. I did a little bit of digging to see if I could find out the number of passengers who cruised between 2010 and 2022 when this data was reported. And it looks like it's around 268 million. So I looked at Carnival specifically because they obviously have the highest number of crimes reported on the chart that I shared. And so it looks like they had about 117.8 million passengers who cruised with them between 2010 and 22. So if we apply that statistic of 379 violent crimes per 100,000 people to that number, that equates to roughly 2.4 crimes per 1 million passengers. Now, again, I know it's not apples to apples because not everything reported on the chart I showed is considered a violent crime, but I mean, it's tiny compared to, general populations across the US. Also, I think another factor to consider with Carnival being, having the highest number of crimes that were reported is that they also have the most number of ships. They have 25 ships in operation. So to me, that there's a correlation there, right? That stands to reason. We know Royal Caribbean was second in terms of the highest number of crimes reported. They're also second in terms of the size of their fleet at 24 ships. And following right along with that, Norwegian was in third place. And guess what? Norwegian is third place in terms of the number of ships in their fleet with 19. So in terms of what does this all mean? Does this turn me off of cruising? Absolutely not. To me, statistically, the chances of being the victim of a crime on a cruise ship is considerably lower than it is just in the general population. So really, I'm just sharing this information so you're aware of it, you know where to find it. If you find data just interesting like I do, I just thought it would be interesting to share. So would love to hear from you. Is this topic interesting to you? What other kind of true crime, particularly as it relates to cruising, do you recall? Would love to engage in conversation in the comments below. And I thank you so very much for watching. And until next time, happy cruising.